In 1967, a new school, Eveline Lowe, opened in the London Borough of Southwark. It was the first school to put into practice the essence of the Plowden Report, which said that at the heart of the educational process lies the child, emphasising the need to see the child as an individual. The Plowden Report was produced by the Central Advisory Council of Education, under the chairmanship of Bridget Plowden in late 1966. The report was encouraging a new educational philosophy to move away from the type of education that was so coldly portrayed by Thomas Gradgrind, the Philistine head teacher in the Charles Dickens novel Hard Times. Thomas Gradgrind considered children as empty vessels to be filled with facts. Now, what I want is facts. Teach these boys and girls nothing but facts. Facts alone are wanted in life. Plant nothing else and root out everything else. You can only form the minds of reasoning animals upon facts. Nothing else will ever be of service to them. On the other hand, consider the beautiful words of French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who said in 1758, "Nature intends that children shall be children before they are men." Childhood has its own methods of seeing, thinking and feeling. This year, 2007, Eveline Lowe is celebrating its 40th anniversary. Come and discover with us the spirit of a school that is still very much child-centred, despite the many educational reforms seen since the Plowden Report. So, how did it all start 40 years ago?
It's a very interesting history, and it was built as an experimental school, as a kind of model school or a demonstration school for the new educational ideas that were around in the 1960s, at the beginning of the 1960s. A lot of educationalists were starting to understand that with young children the emphasis has to be on them as individuals and their personal development, and every child learns at a different pace, at a different rate, and in different ways as well.
Eveline Lowe pioneered open learning spaces as opposed to blackboards and teachers facing the pupils.
The leading educationalists realised that we don't need to have classrooms which are essentially rectangular boxes with children sitting in rows of desks facing towards the teacher. The teacher is the focus of attention, standing in front of a board, demonstrating things and transmitting this knowledge. As you can see when you look around the school, there's a great variety of spaces for teaching, and they're all very interesting, and there may be lots of different activities going on within the classroom at the same time. The architecture is designed in this way so that it's not just an open rectangular box they're working in. There's a series of partitions or semi-partitions, and children are working in bays, and sometimes on raised platforms and sometimes in small enclosed spaces. And it really facilitates this idea that children do best when they're learning in groups and with partners on meaningful activities. These ideas, I guess now, people see as pretty mainstream, but at the time they were quite radical.
These new ways of teaching were indeed revolutionary. Some parents and pupils welcomed the change.
When the school opened, we came round to the classrooms, or came into the school to pick our children up, and you were welcomed into the school, where I found the other schools you only came in if you had an appointment with the headmaster or the headmistress, Mrs. Brennan at the time. Yes.
From what I can remember, it was just so different with the classrooms. You've seen the way the classrooms are situated, and it was enjoyable. I can remember enjoying it.
It was a worthy challenge to apply the new concepts and still reach good academic achievements.
To be frank, there were many things that I felt needed to be changed. In fact, the whole philosophy of teaching and learning, I needed to shift and to change for a number of reasons. At that time, the school population was quite small compared to what it is now. Achievement was very low. Academic achievement, well, I say academic, children's performance in these key skills of reading and writing and mathematics was very, very low. And the reason for that was the previous philosophy of the school was that children should read when they wanted to read, to write when they wanted to write, and to do mathematics when they wanted to do mathematics.
Parents, in the meantime, were left wondering about the new revolution happening at their children's school.
That was the time when things were really changing. Children were being taught to think for themselves, and so personalities were the fore. And then, of course, you go on to this freedom of whatever in the universities and the bigger schools, and things really sort of just went unstructured.
Whereas they all used to sitting at desks in separate classrooms. It was all open plan, and they were sort of wandering around, you know, from section to section.
And what did you think, Mother?
Not a lot at first.
No.
I definitely didn't like it.
No.
I didn't like it at all. I was so used to the system of sitting at a desk
Being structured.
and then to walk into a place that was, kids were wandering where I mean, they had their areas, but
Yeah.
I always felt, well, what's to stop them walking from there over to there? You know?
I didn't think it was a wandering around. It was when you went into a room, they would be laying on the floor with their notepads.
It was strange.
Doing
To us, it was
homework.
very strange.
Yeah, what about
They
you? What do you
were
think?
allowed to work how they felt comfortable.
Yeah, it was strange.
I do remember when my eldest was in what we called G, which was Rising 9. In the morning they had to do their proper lessons, that's arithmetic and grammar, reading, whatever. But in the afternoon, if they'd done all they could, this was with Henry Pluckrose, he was the deputy head at the time, and they could have their project in the afternoon and do their fun thing, whereas in the morning they had to do their proper schoolwork.
There was a time when I came to see Henry Pluckrose about the children not learning maths and doing their tables, and I was told by Mr Pluckrose personally, when my children left school, there'll only be computers and adding machines. They do not need to know their tables.
We were
So
told
that's,
that.
and I was told that.
I had to insist that there was systematic teaching of reading skills, writing skills and numeracy skills, and that needed to happen pretty quickly after I had arrived here.
Over time, Eveline Lowe worked hard to raise its levels of achievement, and to this day the school is still true to its initial concept of child-centred education, instilling a love of learning in its pupils, a feat that not every school can boast about.
We want the children to achieve standards of excellence in everything they do, whether it's conduct or playing a musical instrument or being a mathematician or being an artist or a swimmer, whatever it might be. And of course the enjoyment is absolutely key. We want children to enjoy school.
Children do, it's a very, very broad curriculum. They're learning everything, they're going out on trips all the time. They're obviously in year one it's a lot more work based as well. They do more focused group activities on literacy, numeracy. They do enjoy it. They do lots of partner work, lots of peer group work, lots of mixed work on the carpet. They go out into the school garden sketching. So they use the school grounds as well. And they really do enjoy what they're doing as well. It's a more exciting way of learning it, and it's a more fun way of learning it and retaining it and keeping it and staying focused on it.
At Eveline Lowe, the creative spirit of the children is encouraged to blossom at every opportunity.
In every area of learning, the emphasis is on creative activity and creative pursuit. and encouraging all children to express themselves in some creative way. So it might be that, for instance, they're encouraged to find their own methods to solving mathematics problems, or find their own ways to carry out scientific experiments, or design their own objects. So it runs right through all of their learning, really, and obviously in areas like music and drama and art. The emphasis on the child acquiring confidence and acquiring skills as well as knowledge, and expressing themselves in a variety of ways. It's empowering for the children to feel that they can express themselves in a great variety of ways, and it's enjoyable for them to be allowed and encouraged to be creative in so many ways.
I think the main thread in our school is the move towards experiential learning, that learning should come from activity and not from a textbook, that learning should be child-centred, etc., and we've managed to keep a hold of that process. I mean, I think that's the main thing, the creativity in our school and the child-centredness of it, and we've managed to keep a hold of that over time. I think that's the big difference.
Learning can indeed be fun if the lessons are delivered in an exciting and inspiring way, both in and out of the classroom, and there is plenty of that happening at Eveline Lowe.
Yes, I mean we've looked at the national curriculum and all the guidance that you know, for the age range of the child, and then we will decide within our local area. For example, there's so many things that children can learn from. So instead of doing a topic which is in the national curriculum, such as mountains, which we don't see here, we make it a real life experience, and we'll take the skills and knowledge that they need to know about mountains, but make it fit inner London, so that the children are learning the same kind of skills as everybody nationally, but that it means something to them.
I think that the most important thing for any teacher to do is to enthuse the pupil to want to do it. I think that is more important than sitting down in a lesson being very turgid and saying, oh no, you've got to do this finger and this finger and this finger. If you can make the pupil want to do it in a nice way, then he will go away and do it. And I think that is the gift of any teacher, to make the child want to actually do it.
I think that's our kind of emphasis, is the emphasis on creativity, on creating a very attractive environment, both inside and outside the classroom, and the emphasis on learning through stimulating first-hand experiences. And so we've put a lot of time and resources into making sure that children can go out of the school and benefit from all of the fantastic things we find around us in this city of ours. And the idea that the whole city should be used as a learning resource. And I could give a number of examples, you know, whereby there's an expectation that the children go out several times in the course of a term and visit all kinds of places. I could just mention Tower Bridge, for instance, is within walking distance here. HMS Belfast as a floating museum, Greenwich, the park, Cutty Sark, the Royal Observatory, so many museums and art galleries, fantastic places for adults as well as children, obviously, very, very stimulating, and to give them access to that wide culture and an appreciation of their total environment.
The community of the school is just so vibrant, I think, with all the different families that are involved in the school, and the location and the inside environment of the school. When you walk into the school, there's always something to look at, and I think the staff are all very aware of that, and always put in so much effort to create such a lovely environment for the children. I love the gardens here. I think it's incredibly fortunate for children in an inner city school to have such wonderful green areas and plants and trees, and I know that there's other schools that don't have that wonderful those sort of grounds, and I think that I think the children, although obviously on a day-to-day basis they slightly do expect to see it, but I'm sure they will look back on, think about their school days and feel that they were very fortunate to come to a school that had that sort of environment for them.
We have what some people have described as an oasis of peace. I think you used that word yourself, an oasis of peace and calmness and enjoyment of one another and the things we do together here.
One of the things that I realised when I came to Eveline Lowe is that I had to get my creative skills up to scratch, and I'm actually learning from the other teachers as well, because as a Year 6 teacher I was just focused on the SATs, the core curriculum areas, which is Maths, English and Science and ICT, and that was it. So things like artwork didn't come into it, things like drama. It's really refreshing to come to a school where all of that is at the core.
Pupils also have access to extracurricular activities to further stimulate their minds.
With the Southwark Children's Foundation, which we're now both officers in, it is just that, because the children meet on a Saturday morning, 52 children. They get free brass band tuition and ensemble playing, band playing. They start at 7, and some of them have been with us now, they're 14. The standard of playing is exceptionally high, and I mean the big thing that we've had is we played all the music for the opening of City Hall.
I think it will give them obviously a skill in playing the musical instrument that they are learning, but other than that it gives them a discipline of how to study, how to work at something that is quite difficult and overcome that. Obviously in my case with a brass instrument, but this can also be put into use in latter life with their work and their academic subjects.
One of the essences of the Southwark Children's Foundation that Gary and I are officers of is to put something into children's lives that's going to be a lifelong asset, because no matter what happens in your life, if you've got music skills, then you can lessen the tension and the pressure and just absorb yourself into that particular thing, and then come out a stronger person at the end and deal with whatever problems you've got.
When you think you have a child, and in this case a young child, and you give them something that's completely alien to them, you tell them to put a cold mouthpiece on their mouth, buzz their lips, do all these very difficult things. And for then, in a time for that child to actually produce from a piece of paper, obviously music, and that to produce music, to produce sound that is put together and ordered, I think is a marvellous thing. I think, and that in itself gives me a great deal of pleasure, yes.
It was a tiny little girl with her legs dangling, she was so short, and the trumpet was taller than she was. And he went up to her and he said, "Are you really excited about playing music for the Queen?" And she looked at him in best Southwark, she said, "Nah." And I was so proud of her.
Eveline Lowe also promotes the physical well-being of its pupils.
We deliberately set out to teach them what we believe to be the key aspects for health, which will include exercise. I mean, I didn't mention exercise just now, but that's crucially important. The physical intelligence, if you want to put it that way, the knowing how to use their bodies, developing strong and healthy bodies, not doing things which are detrimental to their health and their well-being and their safety. These are very key areas of learning, obviously, and nutritionally, learning that if they think they can live on a diet of crisps and chocolate, then they're not going to be healthy.
Healthy food. Oh, that means you try and be as much as healthy with whatever you're cooking. Not too much fat, not too much sugar, not too much salt. Yes, a lot of the food are either steamed or boiled, but not fat. Right. Not deep fried. No.
Now you've got some vegetarian children in the school as well. Are you catering for them?
Yes, this is a vegetarian meal. It's corn loaf. And they actually like it. I've tasted it and it tastes really nice as well. Well, the children here, they are very good. They eat a lot of vegetables, but sometimes children can be very fussy.
Yeah.
But if you tell them to taste it, try it, they do. We do family service here, whereabouts we dish it in the containers and the kids help themselves to it. So it gives them more opportunity of eating more. Because with the family service, even though it's all been portioned, but whatever is left in the containers, we don't let them waste it. We try to encourage them to.
Besides good health, the school also addresses the educational needs of a growing child, way beyond the national curriculum. Vital knowledge about life is not necessarily found in textbooks, but is finely interwoven into everyday lessons.
We try to teach all the intelligences, so not just the academic, spiritual, emotional, physical, and I think because we do that, and it is evident in the way our children behave, and people do comment usually on how well our children behave.
Spiritual intelligence is a really interesting way of describing a whole set of attitudes and feelings and behaviours, really. When you start to unpick those areas and see what's involved there's a tremendous amount of learning has to go on about kindness, patience, sharing, sympathy, tolerance, dignity, discipline, honesty, humility, optimism, all of these kinds of things. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but we actually have put a lot of thought into this and realised that learning what these things mean and making them meaningful to children so that they internalise them and understand them and then can identify when they're exhibiting those sorts of behaviours and when they're not. And so we have a language for discussion, and we need these words, we need these concepts, and we need this language so that we can really help children to communicate about these issues.
It just prepares them for the secondary school thing, and obviously at home as well. They're learning the art of being diplomatic instead of going in there violent. They're learning how to deal with a situation without losing their tempers, and kids do anyway, but I do feel that this school prides itself on that kind of thing.
The children are at the centre of everything, and it's a case of course we're academically making sure they get the best they can, but the other side of it is they are little people learning about the world socially, creatively, spiritually, so it's developing the whole child and valuing everybody.
We're very lucky in the school, again because of the ethos and the ideals behind the school. The picking on doesn't really happen because our whole day is integrated in a way that children are working on personal, social and communication skills all day, every day, in everything they're doing. So the children already will sort out their own problems. We have nursery children at age 3 working outside, and in our reception classes age 4 working outside without an adult, and they're doing group activities that have been set up, but they will sort out their own problems. And only when they get stuck, i.e. somebody won't negotiate, they will then come to an adult and say, I've tried all this, it's not working, and then they will work on it.
That's fantastic.
So the children really are the start of that, and the adults intervene as and when necessary.
Visitors to the school do notice a very remarkable atmosphere and ethos here, which centres on the way the children interact with one another and interact with adults. That way of interacting is based on having respect for other people, for having a non-violent code of conduct, a way of solving problems which is constructive rather than destructive. And the children have to learn actually how to do these things.
But I used to go on courses, funny enough, and I used to go on courses and you'd be with people from lots of other schools in the area. And if you went on a behaviour management course, they'd be full of horror stories, and I'd be thinking, you know, because they go round in a circle, and I think, I'm going to have to make something up. Because they'll get to me, and I'll go, well, no, they're all wonderful in our school. And then we're thinking, oh. So I used to try and think of some sort of story I could tell.
Well, it all starts with the teachers, really. I mean, the teachers know the students very, very well, and if they see that there's a learning barrier, something that's getting in the way of their education or their academic learning, which is usually things like social development, friendships in the playgrounds, or behavioural issues, then they'll refer them to me, where I am designing sort of intervention programs individually for the students, where we're trying to break down those barriers, and hopefully they can feel more confident and comfortable with themselves, and then the academic side of it just flows out of them.
The teachers, they do a lot for us, and then they keep on giving us extra lessons and tell us where we need the most, and they keep on pushing us to get to our aims and make sure that we don't give up, and even if we are struggling, we still give it a try.
They read through the questions, they help us get through most of the hard questions, but they don't open the yogurt for us.
We encourage children to be themselves, a person who can relate with others, who knows their own strengths and weaknesses, and is excited about being a better person as well.
I mean, one of the main things I believe that children need is independence. They need to know as learners what they know, what they don't know, what the next step is. I mean, the word education in itself, as we know, to lead out of. I mean, and it's important that that's a philosophy we keep a hold of.
I like that how we have different cultures here and we all get along together, and about how we can spend time in the garden, which is really peaceful and nice.
Play helps to develop the soul of a child. And so, again, that's one of the essence of Eveline Lowe School. It's developing the soul.
Educational reforms are, however, inevitable, and things are set to change in the future. For better or for worse remains to be seen.
As we speak, there's a group of people who are undertaking an investigation into English primary education. Just as 40 years ago, and this school is 40 years old, the Plowden Committee of Inquiry looked deeply into young children's learning. The Alexander Inquiry is currently carrying out a lot of research into practice and beliefs up and down the country, and they are going to come to certain conclusions which I'm sure will be very, very sound. What I'm picking up from the radio also, for instance, are people like the head of the Tests and Examinations Authority saying that he's going to be recommending to government that these formal tests at the age of 11 and 13 should now be scrapped, just as they were scrapped for 7-year-olds, because nobody needs them.
We are committed to raising the levels of achievement. We're committed to the Every Child Matters agenda and meeting those 5 outcomes for the children, but not at the total expense of everything else. So my fear is that the school would change, that it would actually lose its individuality, it would lose its ethos, start treating the children as empty vessels that need to be filled with facts. So we'd be churning out children that could pass tests because they've been coached to pass tests, but they wouldn't be able to be imaginative or do any thinking for themselves.
Being year 6 is not easy. It's like you have to do loads of tests and practice tests, and when the day comes they just start getting scared and stuff like that.
In May our SATs start coming up and we're really nervous how we're going to do, and
we need to put loads of effort in our work.
Just leave them to be children for them 15, 16 years. That's all. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't be about tests and what results.
I heard a statement once which is very pertinent. If you go along the pathway through the woods and stick to the pathway, you never see the flowers on either side. Now, what in fact happened with education now, it's been so directed from the government in, so the professionals have to follow what is said. Within that, the scope for teachers to actually move outside and explore everything that's related to what's being asked to be learned, that time isn't there. And because of that, the teachers can be dissatisfied, but they do their job incredibly well. But the children don't get a breadth of experience around the subject. And the younger they are, they have to have that breadth. You can't go down a straight academic line.
Eveline Lowe is not only an educational haven for the children, it is still to this day openly welcoming the involvement of the parents.
One of the great things about this school, one of the things I most enjoy, are in fact the parents. They are a really, really positive community of people, and they want the best for their children, and they are very supportive to this school. And over all these years, I have enjoyed working with these parents, who are delightful people who appreciate what the school offers their children, and often express their appreciation.
I think the spirit of the school is family orientated. We work as a family. We want everybody to be involved as a family. We're very creative. We look for independence and inspiring children to learn how to learn. And also we encourage them to move on in their own skills of where they are.
For the past 40 years, Eveline Lowe has empowered its pupils in many different ways, and the pupils are in their very own ways showing their appreciation to the teachers.
I think just being themselves, and when they show me or say to me they enjoy the school, and I've even heard some children saying recently that they enjoy being allowed to be themselves. In fact, I met one of our ex-pupils the other day who said to me, he's now at secondary school and it's a fairly regimented life. I think he's finding it there, by comparison anyway. And he said to me he thinks back to his time at Eveline Lowe School and realises that the gift the school gave to him was the encouragement to be himself, to become himself, and not to be afraid to be himself. And that gave me huge satisfaction, that children are allowed to develop and be themselves.
I get the joy in my position from the children. So when you're doing assemblies or when they're sharing their work and the sheer joy that they show, you get some joy from them. And that is the best bit. Seeing particularly what you're doing behind the scenes that nobody necessarily sees, seeing the impact on the children and how happy they are, how settled, how confident they are at school. That is the joy of the job, really.
Eveline Lowe Primary School is a nice school because they got all the stuff you need, like different kind of activities, swimming, gardens, PE, any kind of sport you like to do.
We got nice teachers to take care of us when we get hurt or someone said something kind or bad about us. They take care of us nicely and they hear what we have to say.
If you get children with maybe problems at home and they come in and they want a hug from you every day and they know you're going to give them the hug back and they're going to get that love in they may not necessarily get at home, but they turn to you for it, and that's really nice that they're turning to you. So you're they know in a way can. filling a gap. Yes. Yeah.
Everyone has status in the school, and that has continued all the way through, and nothing ever rocks that. That's the highest praise I think I could give the school.
Yes.
I've never known a spirit like it. It's fantastic. It's I don't know. It's enjoyable. It's just there. It's the enjoyment of just being part of it. The spirit, since I've worked here with Gary, it's been unbelievable. It really is. It's a great place to be. It's just enjoyable. It really is.
I was going into the nursery, taking something into the nursery here, and there was a little 3-year-old there, and his nose, his nose was running or whatever, and he had a pair of scissors, plastic ones, and a piece of paper, and he said to me, it won't cut. So I said, oh, the scissors are a bit like your mouth, you've got to make it bite. So I said, let me hold the paper, holding it tightly because I knew that would work. So he said, right, make it bite. And it got to the end of the paper and cut it through. He said, I did it. And I thought, that is what teaching's about. Yeah. Finding the way to help the child to did it. Yeah. Then I wiped his nose.
Eveline Lowe has become the school it is today, thanks to its visionary leaders and teachers who ensure that the children are taught and nurtured as spiritual and intelligent learners, never to be considered as mere vessels to be filled with facts.
Well, I can't speak highly enough of all the staff here. I couldn't have got through 21 years had it not been for the fact that I'm a member of a team, and a wonderful team of people at that. Every single member of staff here is a very important person. They all do their jobs meticulously and with great care and attention to what they're doing, and I'm extremely grateful for all of their efforts. They are all immensely committed to the school and what it tries to do for children, and I go around every day and I see them carrying out their professional tasks and duties with huge expertise and commitment, and I just admire them so much for what they do for one another and for the children and for the school as a whole. And it's a very gratifying thing for me, and when I do retire I'm going to miss them all enormously.